Hey guys, welcome to part 6 of What If Naruto Had Political Marriage with Temari. If you enjoy the video then like, share and subscribe and also comment your thoughts as it inspires me to make more such videos, and remember to check out my playlist section for other interesting stories. So let's get started. Chapter 38. Recovery. Temari wasn't sure where she was at first. Her head was killing her with a dull throb and her mind felt fuzzy. She blinked a few times to get her eyes focused and noticed the white ceiling. She frowned. This wasn't where she was earlier, was it? Her memories played back and she remembered seeing Naruto get badly hurt in the fight they were in. Naruto. She shot up in her bed and regretted it immediately. She hissed as she felt had tried to move her injured arm. The bones had been fixed but it still hurt to move it, not to mention a few other injuries. You're awake. Temari looked to see Sakura was in the room as well, over by someone else's bed. It took a moment to see that it was Tenten. She hadn't recognized the girl at first with her hair down like that. Plus she looked slightly pale and weaker. What happened? Temari finally asked the pink-haired girl. You all were brought back, Sakura said, looking at the arm. Please don't move this. Shizune had to heal it but it's still very tender. Some of you were badly hurt, Sakura whispered out, slightly remembering the looks of some of them as they were brought in. That had been several days ago and Tenten and Naruto hadn't woken up yet. Neji only woke up earlier this morning as well. Kiba was recovering but up, and Hinata had been only in for a couple of days before being released. She thought back to that day they were brought back. She had seen Kiba with bloody bandages. Tenten and Neji had looked like they had been close to death. Those two had some of the worst of the injuries besides that of Naruto. Sakura had been told to help with getting items and other things. She suspected it was partly Tsunade's way of getting Sakura used to the idea of the kinds of injuries she would see in the future. Most likely it was to prepare Sakura mentally but to also see if she could handle being a medic. The truth was, seeing those she had called friends being brought back in those states was hard. She hadn't slept that first night as bloody images kept running in her mind. She had been checking in on everyone still in the hospital and getting used to how a hospital worked when Temari woke up. Temari winced as her arm hurt to move slightly. Where's Naruto? Sakura looked down. He was hurt pretty bad, but Tsunade said he would make a full recovery. He's in a room not far away. Did Sasuke-kun really do that to him? Temari could see how torn the girl was about this. On the one hand, Sakura had had her heart crushed by Sasuke and her team had been broken and would never be the same again. But she could tell some part of the girl held out hope. She wanted to tell her to forget, but thinking on it, if it had been Naruto who left like that, she would hold out hope too. Love was truly blind and it could be both blissful and more painful than anything. He did. I'm sorry but there's no coming back. He tried to kill Naruto. Temari said evenly, although the rage in her was there. The boy had been someone close to Naruto and not only betrayed Naruto's trust but had tried to kill him. For Temari, that was unforgivable. Sakura winced and balled her fists before regaining control. She was silent for a while before she looked up and Temari had to feel pity for the girl. Those green eyes were so dull now and lost, filled with pain and regret. Temari wanted to say something but there were no words for something like this. Sakura sniffed and seemed to pull some part of herself together again. Let me get a sling for your arm. I bet you'll want to go see him but I need to check with the nurses to see if you can okay. Temari nodded and waited. It killed her inside to not be able to see Naruto at the moment but he was fine. She took solace in that. Hell, it was the only thing that kept her from jumping out of her bed and go looking for him. Well, that and the fact her body hurt in several places. She swore if she ever saw that girl again she was going to kill her. If she hadn't gotten distracted she would have won. Temari was sure that, but she had, and she had paid the price for it. Sakura had come back with a nurse who checked her over and gave some instructions. Temari only half listened but Sakura seemed to be taking it all in. Sakura helped with the sling to Temari could rest her arm. Then the younger girl helped her out of the bed and led her to Naruto's room. Temari was nervous. She had no idea what shape Naruto would be in but eventually they came to a door. Sakura opened it and after getting in they both saw Naruto. He was covered in bandages over what they could see of his body. His head was wrapped up and he had a patch on his cheek too. Sakura was amazed at how well Naruto was doing given the state he had been in. She had stuck a look at his chart. Although she was only just starting her new training and didn't know many of the terms, she did get an idea of what he had been through. Temari sat down in a chair as she reached out and held his hand. He was breathing softly, and for a moment she felt like he could wake up any moment. She wished he would wake up. She wanted to see his bright blue eyes and his smiling face again. It just hurt so much seeing him like this. Do you need anything? Sakura asked softly, placing a hand on her shoulder. Temari was about to say no, but her throat was dry and she most likely hadn't eaten anything solid. Yeah, just something to drink, maybe a small snack. I'll look for something and be right back, Sakura said as she paused for a moment. He'll be fine, Tsunade-sama said so, and I believe in her. Besides, you know Naruto, he always pulls through. Plus I don't think he'd want to see you sad, you know he'll just blame himself. Despite herself, Temari gave a small smile. Yeah, he would. Could you sneak in some ramen when he wakes up? I'd get it myself, but I don't think I could get out of here without anyone noticing. Sakura smiled, and this time it was a real one. Sure thing, I think that will brighten up his day if you give him ramen to eat. Maybe you should feed him it as well, if only to make sure he doesn't get it all over his bandages. Temari nodded, nearly laughing as she could see it. It would be a pain for the nurses to have to change them just because they got dirty from his eating habits. As Sakura left, Temari just sat there holding his hand and wishing he would wake up. Knowing that he would make it put her mostly at ease, but she wanted him awake. She wanted her husband and love. Memorial stone. Kakashi looked at the stone in front of him. It was so simple and yet held so much meaning. Sometimes he wondered why it was tucked away in an area like this, almost out of sight of everyone. Maybe it was because some people didn't want to feel the need to be reminded of death. Kakashi couldn't help it. Many of the most important people in his life were dead. His father's name wasn't listed here. That was a pain he felt whenever he thought of that. His father had been a great man, and the way his life had ended, well, there was just no justice for it. He remembered being ashamed of his father for a time after the suicide. Maybe it was just a way of getting back at him for leaving him alone in the world. He had been young and that death had hit him hard, forcing him to grow up at an early age. It was thanks to Obito that he could take pride having him as a father again. Obito and Rin's names hurt the worst as he noticed them now, especially Obito's. How many years had he plagued himself with what ifs on that day? Minato's name was also here, although seeing his face every day on that mountain was a bit better. It was like he was still watching over the village. He usually came here to pay his respects, or maybe it was a type of penance as well. To force himself to always remember them, to make sure some part of them never left this world. He heard her coming but still didn't move, not even when she came up to him and touched his arm. Kakashi. Anko said simply in a way of greeting. She wasn't smiling like she normally would, her face was more serious, and Kakashi found he missed her smiling face. Anko, he said to her. She could hear the pain in him even though his voice sounded almost like it normally did. Just not with the lazy attitude it had. You've been coming here a lot more lately, she told him, feeling worried. He was silent for a moment before she spoke again. I heard that your team will make it and that the girl woke up today. That's good, Kakashi said simply. Anko frowned. She didn't like how Kakashi was starting at that stone, half ignoring her. She didn't like to see him like this, beating himself up for something beyond his control. Well, if the understanding plan of action wouldn't work, then it was time to change tactics. That's all you got to say. You should go see them at least. I have been. Kakashi had been watching them at night. He hadn't been able to sleep all that well and just snuck into their rooms and just watched them. Part of the reason to ensure to himself that they were alive and would get well. Also, seeing young faces like theirs in that state hit even him hard. He had seen a lot of things in his years, but seeing young faces dead, dying, or even hurt really bad was something he never truly got used to. Yeah, you can hide it, bury it deep inside, but it was always there. I meant let them see you. Now she was in front of him, poking him in his chest. They need to see you personally, you know. I failed them, Kakashi told her, as though that explained it all. He wasn't even sure he could face them, at least not yet. I will see them. As their commander, I know my duty and I will when they're all up. It's just that as their sensei, Team 7 was my responsibility, and now, Anko cut him off. Don't you fucking dare start kicking yourself for that Uchiha boy. She hissed at him. Trust me, I know what it means to be betrayed by someone too, you know. For years I blamed myself since I can't remember what happened. Why I was thrown away, why he abandoned me and put this damn thing on my neck. But you know what? I don't give a damn about that anymore. He threw me away and I consider myself lucky now. Given all the things he did, I wouldn't want to follow in his footsteps knowing what I know now. You can't blame yourself for the actions of others. She glared up at him, almost challenging him to say she was wrong. Kakashi thought about it. He knew in his head that she was right, but still, some part of him kept asking what if he had done things differently. It was still a major loss. Sure, they had taken out several members that were reported to have been with Orochimaru during the attack apparently, but they still had lost Sasuke. That would be bad for the village's reputation. He doubted he would get blamed, but Tsunade would have to face a few less than happy people about this. He looked at Anko now, and he could notice how tense she was. This whole thing was bothering her more than it normally would. She actually went out of her way to find him and to try and make him feel better. Sure, he had friends, but she was the only one to do this. Why do you care so much about this? It's not just because you were part of the mission too, is it? He asked her honestly. Anko fidgeted. She had hoped he wouldn't ask something like that. Truth was, she was worried about him lately. He had barely been seen, and looking at him now, she could see he looked tired. Most likely he hadn't been sleeping well. Look, I just. She wasn't sure what to say because she wasn't sure. Damn it, I hate this. She turned away from him, not able to look at him. When we started this whole thing between us, it was just for some good sex on the side. Just a way to take the pressure off, and it was working. I mean, I really liked the sex part and it was relaxing just hanging out with you. Then things started to get weird. Weird. You were the one that wanted to try that thing with the rope and. Not that. Anko said, remembering that night. That had been a good night. I mean, I started to feel things that I never wanted to feel. When you open up and let someone in, they can hurt you. I were hurt really bad the last time, and I keep people at a safe distance. It's worked fine for years, but now I'm worried about your sorry ass and it's driving me crazy. She had no idea why she was telling him this, but it had been on her mind for a while now and it was driving her crazy. Maybe she just needed to finally voice it, finally get it out in the open so it would leave her alone. Sure, she liked the little arrangement they had, she didn't want to complicate it, but then something had changed. She couldn't say when it happened. Maybe it was just a slow build, something that just blindsided her, and that's why she hadn't noticed it until it was right in her face. And the truth of it scared and confused her. Somewhere along the way, her feelings of friendship with Kakashi and turned into something more. She cared more than just a friend, and she had no idea what to do with it. Kakashi was surprised by this. He thought he was the only one that had started to feel something more than just friendship for her. Truth was, he liked being around her as well. She was full of life and made every day unique and even fun. She was impulsive, energetic, a bit childish, and someone he respected. Her skills and abilities were very good. That and the sex was great too. He had never really clicked this well with someone. But he too had been hurt a lot by letting others in close. Normally they died on him, not betrayed him, as he knew she was talking about her sensei. He knew this might be a mistake, that he might be an idiot for thinking it. But after a lifetime of just losing things that mattered, just once he wanted to gain something and keep it. So he pulled down his mask as he grabbed her arm, spinning her around to face him. She was about to protest, that is, until his lips met hers. She stood there in surprise, but the feel of his lips on hers pulled her in. Before she knew it, she grabbed onto him and pulled him in harder. Eventually their lungs burned for air as they pulled back as they looked into each other's eyes. Anko, I don't know what will happen, but just so you know, I've felt the same things. Kakashi explained to her. I know what we started wasn't meant to be anything more, but, well, what if we wanted it to be something more? He actually felt a bit nervous telling her this. Him nervous, the man that had gone on more missions that could have killed someone than anyone in his age group. Who faced powerful enemies without flinching. Confessing his feelings to Anko actually made him nervous. He might have laughed if he could at the moment. Are you serious? Anko asked him, not sure how she felt. Some part of her that was a young woman felt excited and anxious. The ninja side of her warned her that mixing a professional relationship and a private one with another ninja could lead to heartbreak again. The small girl from years ago was scared that he would abandon her. Kakashi nodded. I'm not sure how to go on. I mean, I've never had a real relationship. Everyone close to me usually has died, but lately my life felt less empty with you. Anko was still unsure at that moment. There were just so many different things her mind was thinking of. So she decided to try something else. She let her heart tell her what to do. The next moment she was kissing him again as they held each other close. She knew this could end badly, that one or both could end up hurt again, but she also felt that their time together had made her life better. Feeling his pressing against her, she wanted him. She wanted to lose herself in him and just forget the world around them. Soon she found herself pressed up against a tree as Kakashi was trailing, kissing along her neck, her hand scratching the back of his neck slightly as a leg hooked around his body. She knew where this was leading and honestly didn't care. Kakashi leaned in close to her ear. My place or yours? Konoha Hospital. It was getting to be sunset when Naruto finally woke up in his hospital bed, although he knew where he was when he woke up. He would know that white ceiling anywhere, after all the times he had been in a hospital. He also felt aches and pains all over his body. He thought back to that recovery mission and how it had ended. Although he was a little fuzzy on the details, he remembered hitting the water head first and the pain in his neck and spine. He remembered the fox. After that it got a bit more vague, but he did remember Temari getting hurt. That thought made his eyes snap wide open and he tried to sit up. He grunted and noticed something on his hand. He looked over and felt relief when he saw Temari fast asleep next to him. She was sitting in a chair, her hand on his, but she was leaning on his bed. It couldn't be comfortable, but she was sleeping peacefully. He noticed her arm in a sling, and in the light he thought he noticed some slight bruising on the side of her face. That made him angry, that she had been hurt like that. His hand held hers and she must have only been slightly sleeping as she moaned. She shifted a bit, trying to get comfortable. Naruto reached out with his other hand and ran his fingers through her hair gently. He was glad to see that she was okay. This prompted her to wake up slowly. At first she wasn't sure what was going on, but she felt someone running their hand through her hair. It felt nice and she looked up to see Naruto. Oh, thank Kami, you're up, Temari said, sitting up in her chair. Are you okay? I think so, Naruto told her. At least physically he guessed he would recover. But he frowned at her as he knew their mission ended in failure. They hadn't been able to get Sasuke back and now he might be gone forever. He still couldn't understand Sasuke. Why would he turn his back on everyone and everything here? He wanted to understand, but he just couldn't. Naruto may not have said anything, but a part of him had looked up to Sasuke. He had been the kind of ninja he tried so hard to be growing up while at the academy. Sasuke had made it all seem easy, so it pushed Naruto to train harder and harder to try and catch up. If it hadn't been for Sasuke, Naruto wasn't sure he would have pushed himself, and where that would have led him he didn't know. Sure, Naruto got annoyed from all the attention Sasuke had gotten, but he still remembered that first day he had seen him. He had seen Sasuke sitting alone looking out on the water by a small hill. The boy had looked so alone. Something that Naruto knew all too well. Naruto never spoke of it to anyone, mainly because he felt that despite everything, under it all Sasuke had been alone in the world. It made Naruto feel like he had found someone that might understand his own pain. So he had tried so hard to get Sasuke to acknowledge him. That was the reason why he had made Sasuke his rival. Back then, hardly anyone would acknowledge his existence, and Naruto did anything to get people to notice him. But he wanted Sasuke to really acknowledge him, someone that Naruto felt could understand him, would see him as an equal, so then maybe they both wouldn't feel so alone in the world. But things hadn't worked out like they had. He had tried to reach Sasuke's heart in their battle, but he couldn't. He tried to get through to the other boy, but he just didn't hear Naruto's words. Then when Temari had gotten hurt, he had lost any control over himself. He felt a bit empty inside from how this mission ended. So many had died and so much blood spilled over it all. How are the others? Naruto wanted to change subjects to think on something different than all this. He had no idea what the others were doing. They had kept moving on forward while others had to stay behind to fight those sound ninja. Temari had been filled in by Sakura while she had waited for Naruto to wake up. Kiba will be out in a week. Hinata is out but apparently is looking in on Kiba every day. Temari gave a small smile now. Apparently Sakura thinks something might be going on between them. Huh. Between Kiba and Hinata. Naruto thought about it and truth was he really didn't know Hinata all that well. She was kind of strange, always stuttering and stuff. But she was nice and maybe it would mellow Kiba out some to have a girlfriend. Plus the only other person on that team was Shino and Naruto wasn't even sure what kind of girl would like all those bugs. I swear that girl likes to gossip almost as bad as that blonde friend of hers, Temari told him although truth was she liked gossip. Call it a guilty pleasure but it wasn't uncommon for romances to happen inside of teams. You spend all that time fighting together, being in dangerous situations where you can only trust those in your team. Things just sort of happened, although it did carry a big risk. Given how she had been distracted by Naruto getting hurt was one such thing. Neji and Tenten are still recovering. He's up but stuck in bed still but she hasn't woken up yet. Apparently she lost a lot of blood and her internal injuries were bad. Temari explained getting a bit more somber. She still remembered dominating the girl in the Chunin exams but maybe that only pushed the girl to get stronger. From the injuries she heard from Sakura, it was amazing the girl was pulling through. Kakashi-sensei and the crazy snake lady? Naruto asked. Naruto, you really shouldn't call people names like that, Temari chided him. They're both fine, apparently they were the ones that carried us back. Naruto was glad to hear that at least, it made him feel a bit better plus he shouldn't have been surprised. Kakashi was one of the best and although he didn't know Anko all that well, she did give Naruto the creeps, someone that scary had to be tough. Looking around he noticed how late it was getting. Hey, what time is it? Temari looked at the clock and was surprised by the time. Looks like it's pretty late. I doubt there are any visiting hours at the moment. Naruto frowned. Does this mean you got to go back to your room? Temari smirked as she stood up. I'm not leaving and if anyone has a problem with that then too bad. I'm staying right here with you. Temari gently got into Naruto's bed as she tried to find a position that they could both be in without hurting each other too much. She lay down and snuggled up to him, her head resting lightly on his shoulder. I was scared that I would lose you, you know. You'll never lose me, Naruto told her as he closed his eyes feeling her with him. Remember what I promised on our wedding day. I said I would protect you for life and I never go back on my word. Temari smiled feeling better hearing that from him. She just wanted to stay like this forever. I love you, you know that. Yeah. Naruto smiled looking up at the ceiling. I love you too. Although he had felt better physically and mentally in his life, having Temari there by his side made this day a little bit brighter. Even as the sun was fading, Naruto watched Temari fall asleep and knew that he would be there in the morning, and for the next and the one after that. They still had a lot of years left to them and she wanted to enjoy them. Sound Village, hidden location. Sasuke groaned as he felt his chest and shoulder aching. He wasn't sure how he got in the dark room or where he was. The last thing he remembered was the fight. He and Naruto had gone full out fighting, then just when he thought he had finally finished the fight, Naruto had came back with something else. Sasuke remembered the red chakra and Naruto's demonic appearance as he had attacked Yuya. At the thought of the red-haired girl he starting to think what happened to her. She had been smashed against a rock face and he had gone after Naruto with his full power. He remembered him forming a Chidori and Naruto making a Rasengan, both attacks looking different as they had charged forward. He remembered piercing Naruto's chest, he had tried to aim for the heart but missed. Naruto's Rasengan had hit him, but it had hit his collarbone and shoulders. That would explain the chest pain if his collarbone was broken. The two attacks had been blinding and the last thing he remembered was falling to the ground. Sasuke gritted his teeth, all this power and it had been a damn tie. Naruto, who had never been able to beat him or come close, had tied him. The thought was maddening. Just how much power did he have to get in order to surpass Naruto and get closer to Itachi? So you're awake now, Sasuke-kun? A familiar voice from the dark said. Footsteps could be heard as Kabuto walked into the more lighted area of the small medical chamber. You. Sasuke stated as he looked around. He could see the medical equipment and how it looked like he was in some kind of underground area. The walls were metal and bland. He saw another bed in the corner and thought he saw some red hair although he could see the face. Kabuto smirked as he saw where Sasuke was looking and the expression on the boy's face and eyes. He had to admit, his mother's plan to help seduce Sasuke to their side was very unexpected and seemed to have affected the boy more than he thought it would. Tayuya will recover in time. I had to take out the poisoning of her system and stabilize her for travel when I came along. You found us and brought us here then. Sasuke said, feeling strangely relieved to hear that the girl would recover. Kabuto nodded. Yes, I decided to check in just in case. Turns out it was a good idea. If I hadn't, you both would have been captured. Sasuke was quiet a long moment before he looked at the sound medic. I need to be stronger. Kabuto smiled at him. Oh, don't worry about that. Once you're back on your feet, we have big plans for you. After all, you want to kill a certain man, correct? Well, I won't go into detail, but Orochimaru-sama would like nothing better than to even a score he has with not only your brother, but the group he's with. We'll make you strong enough to take him on, but don't forget that in 3 years' time you are to be his next vessel. That's the price for the power we will give you. Sasuke thought about it. 3 years was a long time to get strong and he could learn a lot here. Orochimaru had many things that were forbidden, the perfect things to fight his brother with. Looking at the girl's bed, maybe there was a way to ensure that he wouldn't be the last Uchiha as well. One thing, Sasuke said to him, locking eyes with Kabuto. Tayuya stays with me. Kabuto was a bit surprised but hid it well. I think that can easily be arranged. Well, I'll let you get some sleep. You may need it because when you're better we will push you to limits you didn't even know you had. Sasuke watched the man walk softly out of the small dark room. He looked up for a moment thinking about things. Although he really didn't want to become Orochimaru's next vessel, he needed the man. A plan started to form in his mind. He would get stronger. Stronger than even Orochimaru, and if he had to, then he would deal with the man. There was a chance that he could fail, but if he struck him down in a moment of weakness, still he wasn't sure yet. He would have to take years to get stronger and also observe and learn everything about the Sannin. If he failed, he would need to ensure that the clan went on. Looking at Tayuya, there was a chance with her. The girl was stubborn, loud, cursed too often, but she was strong and a good ninja. Better than any of the other girls in his village. He would make her his woman and ensure his clan. Plus they had already slept together, which he had to admit, had been passionate and intense. A part of him wanted more of it, but it would come in time. He lay back and closed his eyes. Sasuke now had a plan, he just needed the time, but that was something he had plenty of. He smirked to himself. Chapter 39. Plans for the future. It had been a couple of weeks since the mission to try and retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, and Tsunade was in her office trying to get through her work for the day. So far it had been a very busy time for the village, having to rebuild from the damage, not to mention trying to cover the losses they suffered from Orochimaru's plot to destroy the village took time. They had lost several ninja in his invasion, and having her top genin teams out of commission wasn't helpful either. The only current top genin team still around was Asuma's team. Even that was only sometimes, given that Shikamaru was a chunin. She had to assign him duties while Asuma had to go on his own missions that only a jonin could do. She sighed as she looked at a document that was an update of her forces. At least she hadn't lost anyone in that last major mission. Still, with the loss of Sasuke, it meant that this village no longer held an Uchiha clan. That actually hurt the village's reputation, and she knew that a few people would look elsewhere. It was amazing what simple name recognition did for simply getting job offers from various people looking for ninja to hire. Still, it wasn't too much. Not like the village would go under from it, but given their current state, they couldn't afford any more major embarrassments. Tsunade really wished she could just take a break for the day, but it was like every time she thought it, something major came up. Working hard, I take it. Jiraiya's sudden voice made her jump in her chair, turning around to glare at him. Use the damn door, not my window, she scolded him as he sat in her open window without a care in the world. I don't got time for any of your funny business, Jiraiya. I got a lot of work today, so if this is about that movement from the women to get you banned from a 50-foot radius of the hot springs, I can't help you. No, I got. Wait, what was that? Jiraiya suddenly did a double take on that bitch, she said. What movement? What did I do to them? Tsunade glared at him like he should know why the women were getting tired of dealing with him. Oh right. Well anyway, Jiraiya figured he should lay low for a bit and stay away from there until the women calmed down. At any rate, I came here to talk about Naruto. You know that group I've been tracking. Well, I've been hearing things about them. They seem to be moving and they seem to have an interest in the Jinchuriki. Now Tsunade was more focused on what he was saying. You mean they might be after them, including Naruto? Jiraiya nodded his head. Yeah, I want to keep an eye on them, but also I wanted to talk to you about Naruto. While investigating this group, I also thought that it would be interesting to see about training Naruto during that time. From what I can figure out, I might have a few years to train him before they start to fully mobilize. Tsunade sighed. You're not the only one who's come to me about ideas for Naruto actually. She looked at the time from a clock on one of the walls. And he should be here any moment now, so why don't you stick around for this? What do you mean someone else has their eye on Naruto? Jiraiya didn't like the sound of that. There was a knock on the door as Tsunade told whoever it was to enter. When Danzo walked in, Jiraiya immediately didn't like where this was going. He had never trusted or even liked Danzo, even if he had been an old teammate of their sensei. The man was the exact opposite of the third in his teachings. He had a few ideas of what he wanted, but he would have to hear what the bandaged man had to say first. Tsunade, I thought this meeting was just between us. Danzo asked, seeing Jiraiya there. As it turns out, he has his own idea about Naruto, so I thought it best to talk about this all together while you were here. Tsunade sat back in her chair. Jiraiya just informed me that he wants to take Naruto on a training trip outside of the village. Oh, for how long? Danzo asked, listening carefully to this. Over 2 years, by then my intelligence says that's when they'll start to move fully. So I got just over 2 years to get the boy ready for them. Jiraiya told Danzo, crossing his arms, almost daring him to speak out against his idea. Danzo seemed to consider this for a moment. If things were different, it might be a good idea. As things are, I don't think Naruto should leave. Why do you say that? Jiraiya narrowed his eyes, wondering what the old man was planning. Have you forgotten that he's a symbol for our alliance? Danzo reminded him. We can't have him just disappear for over 2 years, especially not after the Uchiha defection. The public image of our village to other nations and clients isn't as strong as it was before the failed invasion. They see us as strong as we survived such a thing, but you know that we lost a few key personnel. We're trying to seem strong enough to prevent any other nation from attacking a wounded enemy. You also have to consider that there is a Suna delegation coming next month to talk about the mutual alliance as well as the possibility of joint missions and patrols of our borders. Danzo looked to Tsunade now to address her directly. Naruto will be expected to at least be seen with Temari during this time to help ensure that we're holding up our end of the deal in good faith. Tsunade leaned forward as she started to think long and hard about this. Naruto could use the extra training, but the damn political and economic situation was making it harder for Naruto to leave for that long a period. Plus, without him, Team 7 would be down to 2 genin only. There would be no way to have Team 7 going on missions. Which wouldn't be fair to Sakura or Temari. Plus, if Suna thought she was holding Temari back, it could get ugly for her, as she knew there were still some sore feelings of a few powerful people in Suna. There were hard feelings from the generation from before the Third Shinobi War still in Suna, and something like that would be too good to drum up support to break the alliance. Sakura was training to be a medic, so if it was just her, well, Tsunade could have worked something out. Damn, she wanted a drink badly at this moment. Look, I don't care about politics, never did really. One of the reasons I didn't want the job of Hokage. Jiraiya spoke up. But Naruto has a lot of potential and I can't stay here the entire time to train him. Plus, we were already infiltrated once already by Itachi Uchiha and his partner. The same ones that you defeated, Danzo said back to him. So if you stayed, wouldn't you be able to protect the boy, or are you saying that you can't guarantee success again if they show up? Jiraiya knew he was being baited, but for what he wasn't sure, he hated politics, especially since he was no good with this kind of stuff. Danzo, however, was a master at this kind of thing, so he kept his mouth shut while he tried to think of a way around it. Danzo didn't give him any time. Well, if you feel that the boy needs training so much and to be protected, I think I should train the boy then. Anbu can also be placed to guard him. In fact, I think we should think about Temari as well. She has a lot of potential, and what if they go after her to get at him? Jiraiya hadn't considered that. Most people who were joined with a demon beast either had no real family, weren't close to their family, or those that were close, usually could take care of themselves. If he did get Naruto, he might have to take the girl as well, which he doubted they would let him do. Taking both of them off the grid for 2 years, even he could see how bad politically that could be. I think we should let Naruto choose, Tsunade told both men. You both make points, so we'll have Naruto and Temari come here and ask them what they want. Jiraiya and Danzo looked at each other before nodding to Tsunade. Konoha streets. Guys, is this really necessary? Tenten asked again. She was surrounded by her teammates, which wasn't normally a bad thing. She had just finally gotten out of the hospital and her team was here to see her off. Not that she really needed it, she did get a full clean bill of health after all. Although Lee and Guy were just being a bit too enthused about her recovery. But Tenten, you were in there for so long, Lee said to the girl. You must not get rusty in your skills. I was in there for so long because I got impaled by a large indestructible arrow, Tenten told him, getting slightly impatient. They told me 2 or more inches and my spine would have been severed and I might have ended up without the use of my legs permanently. Although with chakra medicine many injuries could be healed, tissue could be made to regrow in some cases and even some nerves. But a severed spine was something that even the legendary skills of Tsunade might not have been able to help with. The thought of not being a ninja anymore, let alone confined to a wheelchair or crutches for life, was scary to her. You just got out of recovery yourself, Lee, Tenten shot back at him. Yes, and I have been training every day to ensure that I make up for any lost time. I need to become much stronger if I want to go further as a ninja. Lee proclaimed. That's the spirit, Lee, Guy smiled at his young protege. Never give up and push yourself beyond your limits. That's how I got to where I am today, and I know you all can achieve great things. You were also told to keep it easy by the Hokage, Neji told Lee as he put his own opinion in. You don't want to re-injure yourself and go back into the hospital. Plus, I don't think she would take too kindly to you ending up back there after your operation. But how am I supposed to get stronger? Lee asked his friend and sometimes rival. I still haven't completed my goals in life in beating you, Naruto-kun, or being a strong ninja in only taijutsu. You still have years left in you, Lee, Tenten sighed. You have plenty of time, and besides, I'm still sore in the stomach so I can't train. I'm not going to make this any worse, and I was told not to train for 2 weeks, no missions above D rank either. Although Tenten would agree to that, she still felt a bit bored. D-ranked missions were okay, well, for the most part. But with no real action or training, she felt like she might go nuts with boredom. It would be a slow 2 weeks. She stopped seeing a weapons store. She had lost some of her weapons and she had gotten combat pay for the last mission as it was for the village. Her hands itched to take a look at them all and maybe find a few new weapons for herself. Some said she had a compulsion with weapons, but she just really liked them. They called to her and she could master any weapon in her hands easily. The downside was just how expensive it cost to get them all and replenish her supplies when she used them up. You know, why don't you go on ahead? I want to look in here for some supplies. Tenten said to her team. Maybe she could at least get some peace and quiet with Lee and Guy not around. Neji was always quiet, so she didn't mind his presence. Plus, he had been a little off lately. She swore that he was looking at her when he thought she wasn't looking. Almost like he was considering or thinking about something. But as your team, we should stick together and look after you. Guy told her. Since you're not up to training and we're told to take it easy, and if you insist on that, then we should help you out as a team. Tenten sighed, knowing that if they stuck around her for 2 whole weeks, that would drive her nuts first. She loved her team, but she still needed some quiet time now and then. Lee and Guy would get bored easy with nothing to do and would start to find things to pass the time. That was a dangerous combination no matter what happened. Neji cleared his throat. We don't all need to be here. Since you both are so dead set on training, why don't you both train together? I can look after Tenten by myself. This way Lee can get in his training, even if he was told to take it easy, and we're still making sure that Tenten is taking it easy as well. Guy seemed to be thinking this over. It would allow them to maximize their time, and Lee was just so eager to learn more. Not only that, but a part of him wanted to see where Lee was after the operation and find out just what the boy's limits were. He was told by Tsunade that Lee was never to use the lotus moves again, so he had to figure out a way around that. That is a most excellent idea, Neji. Lee was nearly jumping at the chance to go train with Guy one-on-one. Well, if you think so, then maybe we can do it that way, Guy said, coming to a decision. So you look after Tenten and I look after Lee then. Tenten wasn't sure what happened, but eventually Lee and their sensei went off to train, leaving her with Neji. You know I can walk home and shop by myself, you know. She told him when they entered the shop. I know, but you seem to want some space from those two, plus if you end up buying some of the heavier weapons you still might need some help. You said yourself that you're still a little sore. Tenten thought about it. She hadn't thought about what she would buy. Sometimes she got something on impulse. So if she needed some help, it might be nice to have an extra pair of hands. Plus Neji wasn't going to be as disruptive as the other two, thankfully. So she went to look around. She found a few replacements and even a couple new weapons for herself. Turns out that Neji had been right. She ended up with 2 bags of weapons, and when she tried to lift both, her stomach seemed to take offense. So she carried one bag and Neji the other as he walked her home for the day. It was a nice day out and Neji was nice and quiet company for the moment as well. Tenten, Neji said suddenly, nearly making the girl jump in surprise. There's something that I've been wondering about. Tenten blinked. She knew that there had been something on his mind lately. Okay, what is it? What did you mean that you were glad it was me there with you when you lose consciousness? It took her a moment to remember saying that to him. She had been wounded and thought that she might have been dying. In fact, she had hoped earlier that had just been a dream she had. She blushed as she tried to think of something to say. Truth was, in that moment she had been glad that Neji had been there holding her. It had felt so good to have been in his arms, maybe more so than she should have been. She had spent her time recovering, remembering that moment and the emotions linked to it. She remembered coming to the conclusion that she might actually like him. That wasn't a bad thing really. He was really good looking, mature, and serious about his career, plus he treated her like any other ninja, not as just a girl. She hated being treated weaker because of her sex. But he was on her team and that might complicate things. Okay, sure, Temari and Naruto seemed to make it work at least. But they actually cared for each other. Surely Neji didn't see her as anything than just a teammate. Well, it's just that. Tenten cursed herself. All that time she should have came up with something to say if he ever asked, but she never considered he would. Neji could see her blushing and she had never really stammered like this before. He had been thinking long and hard the past 2 weeks about what she had said, and he was unsure how he felt. For as long as he remembered, he had been angry with the world, mainly with the main branch. But with that gone, he had other goals in his life now. He never thought about girls or relationships, but lately he had started. Maybe a near-death experience with Tenten had opened his eyes to something he hadn't seen before. If you're not comfortable saying anything, you don't need to, he told her. He wasn't sure if either of them were ready to admit what they might feel. Or even knew what they were feeling exactly. But there was one thing that he felt that he needed to say to her. Just so you know, I would have no one else by my side than you. Tenten's eyes widened a bit as the blush increased a bit. She then smiled at him. I feel the same way. He gave a small smile to her and a nod as they walked on together. Both feeling things neither of them had experience in their short lives, but it was a nice warm feeling for them. Tenten wasn't sure if this was a good sign, but she felt nicer after hearing that from him. Their hands brushed against each other, making both blush slightly at the contact. Tenten felt her heart beating faster as she wondered what would happen if she took a chance. Eventually she decided to try to take a chance. If anything, nearly dying made her think just how much life meant. She had been ready to die, and when she woke up in the hospital knowing everyone else had pulled through made her feel so happy. So in the spirit of this, she decided that the next time their hands were close she took his hand in hers. She blushed bright red while not looking at him. She could see him look at her sharply, most likely surprised by it. But he didn't let go. She smiled at that. Neji wasn't really the kind of guy that actions spoke more than words sometimes. The fact he didn't try to pull away spoke volumes to her. Neji was surprised, but he did hold it gently in his hand. Her hand seemed so slim and smooth in his hand. It felt like it kind of fit for some reason as well. He wasn't sure why he held on, but he did anyway. Maybe it was the first step in something new, or maybe this would be the only time. He wasn't sure, but he was enjoying the moment, so he didn't bother thinking about tomorrow, only about today. Tsunade's office. Temari and Naruto got up to Tsunade's door. Naruto was about to just walk in before being stopped by Temari. She knocked first and waited for Tsunade's response. She made a mental note to help Naruto with his patience and protocol at some point. When they heard Tsunade's voice calling them in, they walked in. There sitting at her desk was Tsunade and also Jiraiya and Danzo, both standing on either side of her. She could already feel the emotions in the room and something was going on. Hey, what's going on here? Naruto asked, looking around. Although even he could tell something was up, he wasn't sure why the bandaged guy was here. He remembered him from his wedding. Danzo something, he thought. The guy was always wrapped up, making him wonder what was under the bandages. Maybe he was really messed up or something, like burns or scars all over his body. He was a bit curious to find out, but a few mental images of an old man in burn scars quickly put that idea away. Temari was a bit weary of what was going on. She didn't like the feel of the room. I have something important to talk to you both about, Tsunade said, leaning forward on her desk. It involved your future for the next few years. What are you getting at, Ba-chan? Naruto asked her. Basically, Jiraiya got some intelligence on this group Akatsuki. Tsunade went into the whole explanation of why they were here. She told them exactly what Jiraiya told her about the group and that they were after people like Naruto. This didn't make the two young ninja feel any better, knowing there was a group made up of some of the most powerful rogue ninja. One was being Itachi Uchiha himself, whose name was infamous in their village. Then they got to what the meeting was really about, the choice they would make. Jiraiya offered to train Naruto while wandering the lands for over 2 years, gathering what information he could while training Naruto. Danzo gave his side of things and told how he would be able to train both of them and ensure their safety. Each side had their merits and failings. So these are our only choices? Temari asked when they were done filling them in on everything. She didn't like the choices they were presented with. Naruto didn't like them much either. He felt he was forced into yet another situation, although to be fair, the last one did work out well for himself. Look, why can't I take Temari-chan with me? Well, I would be willing, but I don't know much about wind-style jutsus that I could teach her, to be honest, Jiraiya admitted to them. I'm sure there is still plenty I could teach you both, things I bet you never thought of before. There is more to being a ninja after all than just ninjutsu, taijutsu and genjutsu. There are tons of tricks and skills I can teach, plus with taijutsu I can teach you both in that as well. Naruto lit up at the thought of training with the old man again. Sure, he was very unorthodox, but he did get results. Temari wasn't as impressed. If I do go along, you realize you won't be slacking off like you usually do, she told Jiraiya. What do you mean by that? The Sannin said, slightly offended by what she said to him. I mean no more of your research, you'll be working non-stop for all this time. Temari said seriously. She had heard the stories that Naruto told her about his training with him. She didn't like the way this guy taught. You won't just show us something then take off for a few days letting us try and figure it out. If you train us, it will be done properly. She crossed her arms, daring him to say anything against it. I want Naruto to have the best training and I'm going to make sure of it. If I find out just once that you went off for research, drinking, or going to those hostess bars or anything like that, I'm taking Naruto straight back here while you're gone. Jiraiya paled at the thought of pure work for so long. He couldn't remember the last time he worked so hard for so long a period. Plus, he really did need to do work on finding more information on the Akatsuki too. Plus, he knew that the girl was deadly serious. I don't suppose we could work something out, he hoped. Depends, she said evenly. Are you going to throw us off any cliffs? You told her about that. Jiraiya comically yelled at Naruto. You never told me not to say thing about that. Plus, you did do that to me. Naruto shouted back. You did what to Naruto? Tsunade barked out, glaring daggers at her old team member as he shrunk back, fearing a blow to the face if she got any reach on him. Then perhaps it would be better for them to stay in the village, Danzo said calmly, liking where this was going. If he could get them to train under him, it would give him time to mold and shape the two of them. They were key people for the future of the village and would make for great allies if he could slowly convince them of his way of thinking. Both Temari and Naruto didn't feel all too comfortable with that idea either. This went back and forth for an hour. Someone would come up with an idea, and someone else would try and point out the flaws in it. It seemed like they couldn't agree on anything that is until a compromise was finally reached by Tsunade. Look, seeing that Naruto will be needed for the village at certain times, plus his ninja career can't be put on hold the entire time, at least not with this marriage, and he needs to train under you for certain reasons. Tsunade knew that Jiraiya planned to train Naruto in the use of the Kyuubi, that hadn't came out, but she knew that it would be dangerous to try that in the village. Plus there were other things that the man could teach Naruto. So here's the proposal. Tsunade looked at everyone in the room. Jiraiya will take Naruto, but only for certain times when he's in the area. He'll train Naruto for a month or two at a time, and he can continue to do missions for Team 7 as well. This way he will still be seen in the village, but not knowing where he is and for how long will make it harder to track him. He'll have the security of the village while here, and Jiraiya can keep him hidden for the training. She could see that no one really liked this idea. Jiraiya had his heart set on a full 2 years, but this was better than nothing. And he knew it would force him to cram as much in as possible. Temari wouldn't like not going with him, but she would still be needed here. Plus with both of them suddenly gone, it would make a few in Suna nervous. She could continue to train and do missions the entire time without interruption. Although she would miss Naruto when he was gone. Danzo was the least happy, but he could at least try to get them to consider either some training or help from him while they were here. It would be a lot harder, but thankfully his plans for the future of this village didn't hinge on them. Naruto. Well, he liked and hated it. He liked that he would learn a lot from Jiraiya, but hated leaving Temari behind. With things finally decided, everyone broke off the day. Tsunade slumped in her chair when everyone was gone. She pulled a drawer out to take some sake. She really needed a drink after all of that. Later that day, both Naruto and Temari were sitting on the couch of their living room, both resting against each other and holding hands. Neither of them was sure what to say, but they had come to a decision that would affect their future for the next few years. Temari was the first to speak up. I'm going to miss you when you're gone with that man for a month or more. She sighed. Naruto nodded. Yeah, same here. It's strange. I've lived alone most of my life, but since we started living together, well, I got really used to it and actually like it. It's going to be weird when I wake up and you're not there, or seeing you at breakfast, training together and stuff. Well, with luck you'll be back for the next Chunin exams. I hear Suna is holding it so we can see my brothers while we're there. Temari offered. Oh yeah, that will be great. Naruto had never really been to Suna himself, so he was looking forward to it. He had heard the stories and seen some pictures, but other than that he wanted to look around it and see how the village was different. It will be nice to see Gaara and makeup guy too. Temari rolled her eyes. You know you'll have to call him by name soon. He is your brother-in-law. Yeah, I know, but I thought family is supposed to tease each other. He honestly asked. I guess. She honestly didn't know as her family was anything but normal. She had never really been the teasing type as she was the oldest, and with Gaara, well, you didn't tease Gaara, at least not back then. Still, she didn't like the fact that she wouldn't see him for so long, but it was better than not seeing him for over 2 years. That would drive her mad with worry knowing there were those after him. Well, we got a month before that happens, so what do you say we make the most of it? Oh yeah, I think I can get one of those wind jutsus down by then. Naruto's face lit up at that. Temari's sweat dropped. She should have known that training was the first thing on his mind. Well, second thing, she bet ramen wouldn't be too far behind. Oh man, I better made sure I eat ramen from Ichiraku on the day I leave. Maybe if I ask nicely they'll let me take some to go too. Temari couldn't help but laugh. She had only known him only a little bit and she knew him pretty well. He just looked at her confused, wondering what she found so funny. He hated being left out of the joke. Temari quickly got control of herself as she thought how she would miss him even more at this point. He could make her have fun and laugh like no one else, even when it wasn't on purpose. How about another idea? Temari asked him. Like what? Naruto thought about it. Temari wrapped her arms around him as she pulled him close as she kissed him. Naruto quickly got the idea as he kissed her back. He liked how soft her lips were when they kissed and the taste as well. He kept meaning to find out how she got her lips to taste like peaches. If only she could taste like ramen, then it would be perfect, but this was still great. If he was going to leave in a month, then he really needed to make some time for himself and Temari. Kissing her made him aware of just how much he was going to miss her and being able to do things like this with his wife. Chapter 40. Epilogue. Temari felt the sun on her face as she turned over in her bed. Part of her wanted to go back to sleep. She reached out and felt the empty place next to her and sighed. Naruto wasn't here. He hadn't been here for nearly 4 weeks as he was off again training with Jiraiya. It had been over 2 years since that meeting in the Hokage's office, and every time he went she missed him. She would start to focus on work, training anything to get stronger and push herself. Mainly because when she got home it felt so empty without him. Now that she was awake she sighed and decided to get up. Normally Naruto would have been back sooner, he was overdue to be back. Something that happened from time to time, but he was only supposed to be gone for 3 weeks, not 4. She hated it when he was late in getting back more than when he left because she had no idea what was going on or why they were late. She pushed her thoughts out of her head as she got herself ready for the day. Temari washed, dressed and ate alone as she took some time to clean up a bit. There wasn't much to clean up, since with Naruto gone she always kept things neat. It was a constant struggle to remind him to clean up after himself. He wasn't as bad as he used to be, but she still found clothing or items left forgotten. She wouldn't pick it up, she would just go in search of him and make him do it. He was not a child and she was his wife, not his mother. Although she never said such a thing to his face, knowing full well he never knew his mother, but still it was one of the annoyances she learned to live with. Looking around she could see all the little things that had made this her new home. There were pictures of their lives over the past few years hanging up or on display. She smiled looking at one of Team 7 in Suna. That was during their Chunin exams, and the one next to it had Temari, Naruto and Sakura in Chunin jackets smiling at the camera. That had been a fun time. Of course their team went through the exam and they all passed. A few other teams passed as well, but it had been nice to be back in Suna. She remembered showing them around, not to mention hanging out with her brothers and even Matsuri, the girl that had replaced her. Even back then she could have seen that the girl was crushing hard on Gaara. A year ago she had gotten a letter from Matsuri. Actually, she liked the younger girl and she had poured her heart out asking how she could get Gaara to notice her. So she had given her some advice. She heard that she had confessed to him and Gaara and the girl were going out. It was still a shock how much her little brother had changed so much. He was a lot more calm and open now. Sure, he was still a bit stoic, but he was a lot more welcoming presence about him. She smirked remembering when they got the news of him being made the cage. Naruto and her had gone off to congratulate him as soon as they could. Naruto proclaiming he wasn't going to lose to Gaara and would make Hokage soon. She looked through a few more items. One was her old Suna headband in a glass case proudly displayed on the wall. Then there was this painting of Suna. It was actually of her favorite spot where the sun sets just right. The image captured it as well. Naruto had gotten for her while on a training trip with Jiraiya. He had stopped in Suna for a bit, tracked down a good artist and had him paint it for her. It was a thoughtful gift on their second anniversary and she loved it. She remembered how he had forgotten their first anniversary. She hadn't spoken to him for a full week after that. It actually had been one of the worst moments in their marriage. But eventually he managed to make up for it and she got over it eventually. Although she suspected Sakura had kept reminding him about important dates from this point on just in case. Temari sighed as she went to the door and was going to check in on Sakura. Temari had an appointment anyway to keep with the medic. Temari traveled through the village with a slight smile. This village had become her second home now. Although Suna would always be in her heart, she had grown to love this village as well. The people, who at first had been a bit weary of her, had grown to trust and respect her and Naruto. It was a nice feeling and it showed that people could change for the better at times. Later, Temari and Sakura were now walking together to the front gate as she had to get the morning visiting log. Temari decided to keep her company. Besides, they had nothing else planned and it was nice just to hang out. It wasn't long before they saw Tenten talking to a very moody Neji. "Hey guys, what's with him?" Sakura pointed to Neji. "He's just sulking." Tenten smirked as he seemed to take offense of her choice of words. "Do we want to know why?" Temari asked, although she was kind of wondering herself. Over the years she and Tenten had started to have friendly sparring matches from time to time. Mainly Tenten said she wanted to overcome her weakness she was shown in her first Shunin exams. The girl had gotten a lot better but Temari was proud that she still came out on top most of the time. Tenten giggled. Turns out Kiba actually asked Hinata out yesterday. You're kidding. Sakura said shocked at that. Those two have been dancing around the topic for like 2 years. So Kiba broke down first huh? She smirked at that. She had a running bet with Ino on who would ask out who first. Unlike her master, it would seem that Sakura was a better gambler. Not that it was hard to be a better gambler than the legendary sucker was. She couldn't wait to shove this in Ino's face and get the money. He doesn't deserve her. Neji finally spoke up darkly. He had never really approved of it when he found out that both of them might like each other. Hinata was his cousin, almost like a sister to him now, and he was a bit of an overprotective side to him lately. Some thought it was his way of making up for his earlier actions in life when he was younger and full of anger at the main branch. Tenten elbowed him in the ribs. Oh please, if she didn't like him she would have said no to his offer. Besides, you know he wouldn't do anything. He's smart enough to not piss off both her father and his mother if he did anything inappropriate. He better not even think such things, Neji told her while wondering if he should follow at a distance. He could always keep his eyes on them from where they wouldn't see him. Temari and Sakura couldn't help smiling at the sight. Neji was usually very calm and reserved with the exception of when it came to either family or Tenten. The two of them had been dating steadily for over a year now. At first it had been a little rocky but they had eventually gotten into a nice relationship between them. Temari and Sakura said their goodbyes leaving Tenten to deal with her boyfriend's overprotective nature. Wow. Seems like everyone is hooking up. Sakura sighed a little envious. I mean there's you and Naruto for starters, although that technically wasn't your choice. No, but it worked out for us, Temari stated with a nod. I'm not sure who else I would have wanted really. He certainly makes life more fun. Among other things, Sakura smiled knowing Naruto well enough to know the kinds of things he got into. I swear the village always seems dull when he leaves. Oh yeah, did you hear about Anko and Kakashi sensei? He didn't propose finally, did he? It was a long-standing joke among Team 7 to tease their sensei about his now open relationship with Anko. It had shocked a lot of people the day they had been seen walking through the streets arm in arm. Then when asked and they admitted to being a real couple, well, it was a surprise. Guy actually challenged Kakashi that he himself would get a girlfriend, not wanting to lose in love to his rival. The man was still searching sadly. If only he wasn't so energetic he might actually not scare off so many women. No, he didn't. I'm not sure they ever will marry. They just seem happy enough as they are, Sakura pointed out. No, I heard they're actually moving into together. Something about that they are at each other's places all the time, so why not just have all their stuff in one spot? I don't know why, but that sounds like them. Temari shook her head. Those two had never been the conventional couple to start with. Speaking of couples, is Lee still trying to get a date with you? Sakura had the good decency to blush. Yes, he's as bad as Naruto was, now that he's married to you and, well, no one else is in my life, he thinks he's got a chance. She didn't say Sasuke's name anymore, she just couldn't really bring herself to say it. The boy had not only crushed her heart but had harmed her friends, teammates and betrayed them all. But I'm just more focused on my career now, Sakura told the older girl. I spent a lot of years wasting my training because I chased after a boy. So I just want to focus on me. I want to find out who I really am and see what I can do with my life for a bit longer. I mean, you already made Jonin and you're only 18. So maybe later I'll look into a relationship, but I'm just not ready yet. Temari nodded as it made sense to her. There was nothing wrong with focusing on your career. Sounds like a plan, although for a moment I thought it was that cute young medic that I've seen you talking to. Sakura blushed at the mention of him. He's just new. I mean, he only just got his medical ninja exam finished and asks for pointers from me. I have trained under Tsunade-sama personally and have mastered a lot of medical jutsus. There's nothing wrong with someone having a healthy attitude for learning more. I am his senpai after all, so I should act like a good one. Temari smirked. She had seen this medic talking to Sakura a few times and the boy was a year younger but a decent looking guy. It was obvious he might be smitten over Sakura as well. But she put that aside. Besides, it would be fun to watch Lee's reaction to when he found out he might have a rival for Sakura later on. But all this talk on relationships just made her miss Naruto more. When in the hell was he? So, are you going to tell him? Sakura asked her. You know, when he finally gets back. Temari sighed. Of course, I just don't know when. Thankfully I've gotten used to the idea by now, also thanks for keeping it quiet. Sakura nodded. Sure, you wanted to be the one to tell him anyway, although I did have to tell Suand and Shizune because of the medical rules involved. Temari knew, although she didn't like it, but she had accepted it by now. Outside the village, Jiraiya was walking back home with his young apprentice, who of course was nearly bouncing with excitement. He always got like this when they were returning back to Konoha, not that he didn't understand his reasoning. The young boy had grown into a young man, although he still wore a bit more orange than he felt was necessary. At least Jiraiya had persuaded him to put some black onto his new clothes. The green Chunin vest might need some repair as well. After this last bit of training it might need to be replaced. Calm down, we're almost back, he chuckled at him. I know you miss your lovely wife, but you can wait a bit longer before taking her back into the bedroom. That's not the reason, Ero Sennin. Naruto shouted at the man, blushing a bit. Oh please, like I don't know that every time you leave or when you get back, you two eventually end up there. Either as a way to say goodbye, or welcome home, to each other. He saw his student's face go all red and just laughed. Even after all this time the boy just couldn't hide certain facts about his life and was still a little innocent, in some ways. How the hell do you know that? Naruto demanded. If you're peeking on us, I'll tell Temari. Jiraiya paled at that. That girl was nearly as scary as Tsunade when angry. She was glad that Tsunade was training Sakura and not that girl. He might actually die if that was the case. Look, it's easy enough to figure out, plus you two are young and the marriage is still fresh. I know if I was in your place I would. I don't want to know. Naruto covered his ears before he got any mental images that he might not like to carry around with him for life. But it was something he looked forward to. Temari had become a major part of his life. He loved waking up next to her, the time they spent together, even when he did something he wasn't supposed to and she got angry. Plus she was kind of cute when she was angry, he thought to himself with a smirk. Finally, in what seemed like forever, the large wall and gates of the village were seen. Jiraiya could see just how eager the boy was. Jiraiya couldn't help but marvel at how he looked so much like his father and yet acted so much like his mother. Soon the boy would be able to stand on his own, and then finally Jiraiya planned on telling him everything about his parents. It was a bit cruel to not tell him, and he wanted to, but everyone that knew also knew that his father had lots of old enemies that might not let old grudges go. Go on then, I can get there by myself, Jiraiya told him. Thanks, was the only word out of Naruto's mouth as he ran home. He made it to the front gate in record time, passing the guards with a small hello as he ran past them. It was a normal sight for anyone at this point. Naruto jumped over the rooftops looking for Temari. He wanted to make sure he didn't miss her in case she wasn't at home. Then seeing a blonde with familiar hair and black dress with a pink-haired girl in red on the streets below, he knew he found her. Naruto quickly jumped down behind them, silently stalking them as the two talked. He had learned how to be very sneaky at a young age. He crept up behind his wife and suddenly grabbed her by her waist, lifting her up. I'm home, Naruto yelled out, lifting her up. Kya. Temari let out suddenly as she looked behind her, half scowling for making her sound so girly and half smiling for him being home. You'd think after all the years she would be used to his surprises, but if there was one thing she learned, was that Naruto would always surprise you. Where were you? She demanded, smiling now as he let her down and hugged her close. I was getting worried. Sorry, the normal way back had a rock slide, so we had to take a detour, Naruto explained, slowly pulling back for her, although he wanted to keep her close. Well, I'm glad you're back then, Temari smiled, looking at him. In the years he had become very handsome and even taller. At first she had been taller, and how he had a few inches on her, she actually liked that bit. The baby fat was gone and now stood a very lovable and good-looking husband. Oh yes, things had worked out very well for her. Sakura smiled at the scene. The hopeless romantic in her loved seeing the two together like this. You could just see the love between them, and it only got more intense over the years. Either from getting used to the affection or just getting used to each other, maybe it was a bit of both. Well, it's nice to have you back, Sakura told him. I got to get the visitor's log, so why don't you two catch up and I'll tell Tsunade-sama that you're back. Sure, thanks Sakura-chan. Naruto grinned at his close friend. Temari was thankful for this. Most likely Sakura was giving her time to talk to Naruto, but not yet. First, she wanted to have a few moments with her husband. She linked her arms in his as she headed back to their home. So then, shall we? Naruto's grin only got bigger. Lemon. They had barely closed the front door before they were locked in each other's arms, their lips hungrily searching for each other. It always felt like forever when they were apart, but when they got back together, they always tried to make up for lost time. She unzipped his Chunin jacket and threw it over the couch on their way upstairs. Usually she was a stickler for where clothing went, but times like these were the exception. Naruto's hands caressed her back, feeling the strong form under her black dress. They went lower as he grabbed her well-toned ass in his hands. He gave her a little squeeze as she moaned into his mouth in pleasure. Her hands unzipped the shirt and then felt the strong muscles under it. He had trained a lot with both her and Jiraiya over the years, and it was starting to show on him. By the time they made it to the stairs, he quickly picked her up bridal style and carried her up to their room. You know I can walk, she told him, kissing his neck. I know, but I like doing this. He grinned, feeling her hot breath on his neck was very distracting. When they made it to their room, she slipped off his orange and black jacket and cast it to the floor as he undid the red sash around her waist. He pulled open her dress to show him her black bra and panties. That made him wonder, as she normally had on ninja mesh armor like himself under her clothing. But he shrugged it off. He was too busy looking at her body to really think on it. She pulled off his shirt, seeing the now bare muscular chest with the Hokage's necklace there. Kicking off their shoes, they continued to kiss and fondle the other. Naruto slipped off her dress as it fell to the floor as she worked on his pants. The two young married couple then proceeded to enjoy their reunion. Over the years they got to know each other's need very well and were well versed in how to pleasure to the other. After some time and effort, both young lovers took a moment to breath after they had finished. It was always like this when they reunited. It always made this moment more passionate. Naruto smiled up at the ceiling. It was good to be home again, he thought to himself. He could hear Temari's breathing slowly going back down to normal. For Temari, she wished she could just enjoy the moment, but there was something important she had to tell him. She had been so caught up in him being home again that she had gone with her passions first. Not that it was a bad thing. In the years they had learned each other's bodies very well, and usually this was just the first round before a break, and then things would heat up again. But before that, she needed to talk to him. Man, I can't wait to go on missions again. Hey, you think Tsunade-bachan will have one ready for us? Naruto asked his wife eagerly. It was now or never, she figured. Maybe it was best to work her way up to it. Well, maybe, but there's something I have to tell you. I'm on medical leave now. I'm off the active roster, so I can't go on any more missions. What? Naruto shot up straight in bed, his face filled with worry. Is something wrong? No, not really, Temari sighed. You know how in our marriage is originally political, we were supposed to have kids at some point. He nodded his head, remembering that. They had talked about it, as lately they were getting some pressure from a few of the more impatient members holding a political passion in either Suna or Konoha. Well, looks like we don't have to worry about it anymore, she told him. Why not? As much as she loved him, he really was a little slow in some areas. Remember before you left and we were in kind of a hurry to say our usual goodbye to each other? He blushed a bit, remembering that. Yeah, I do. I forgot to take the usual precautions, she admitted. The fault was hers. Looking back on it, she should have been smarter. Stupid teenage hormones strike again, apparently. She could see his mind starting to make the connections, so she gave him one final clue. She took his hand and placed it on her stomach as his eyes bulged out. Why, you mean? He looked at where their hands were. Yeah, you're going to be a dad in about 9 months or so. Temari hadn't been sure on his reaction on this. He knew that he always wanted to be part of a family of his own. Now he was going to start his own. She was a little scared herself. She hardly remembered her own mother, and the less said about her father the better. Both hadn't had anything in the way or good parents to draw on how to be good parents. After a few minutes of him being so unnaturally quiet was starting to get to her. Naruto, say something. He soon broke out into the largest smile she had ever seen. He jumped up on the bed, raising his hands up in the air. I'm going to be a dad. Yahoo! She felt relieved that he took it so well. I can't wait to tell everyone. Naruto had never really been this happy before in his life. He couldn't wait to see if he was going to have a son or daughter. Not that it mattered, but there was just so much he wanted to do. The realities hadn't hit him yet. He was too focused on the fact that he would have a family. He had promised himself years ago that when he and Temari had kids he would be the best dad he could be. Now that he was going to be a father, he wanted to go right up to the head of the fourth and yell it out to the whole village. Why wait? I'm going to tell everyone now. He jumped off the bed, running for the door. Naruto. Temari yelled out in shock. Put some pants on at least. She scrambled up, hoping to catch him before he left the house naked. She prayed that their children wouldn't take after their father's energetic nature too much, or else they were going to have their hands full within a few years. Hidden sound base. Sasuke was sitting on a bed in the room he currently was using. There wasn't much in the way of personal items given that he moved around to various bases of Orochimaru's over the years. But although his life was different, he had grown much stronger over time. He knew that he was close to being on his brother's level, that soon, finally, after all these years, all the sacrifices would be worth it. He could finally kill his brother and be free of him. There would be no more nightmares of his brother standing over the bloodied bodies of his clan, mocking him with his cold expression. With that done, he could set about rebuilding his clan and start to restore it to its former glory. It would take generations, but he had to start somewhere. There was a catch though. The time was slowly starting for Orochimaru to take a new host. This was something that he had been preparing for years to do. In fact, he had been training and planning to avoid being Orochimaru's new vessel. He never planned on actually going through with it. He was just using Orochimaru like the man was using him. It was just a matter of who defeated who first. For years he had been secretly studying the man's jutsus, strengths and weaknesses, and there was a fatal flaw in the Snake Sanin's plans. Although Sasuke wasn't totally sure, he was fairly reasonable that he could defeat him when he came to collect his new body. He would be weak at that point and his ego would think that he couldn't be beaten. Well, Sasuke was going to show him just how vulnerable he really was. Fuck, what time is it? Came the annoyed voice of his bed mate. It's early, you should get some rest. He said to her. I would, but someone decided to kick me in the bladder. Tayuya sighed as she got up slightly. She placed a hand on her large stomach, obviously heavy with child. For the past few years they had been together, and although never official, they were together. They trained, fought and slept in the same room for the past few years. Being pregnant was one of the side effects of some of the activities they ended up doing together in bed. She was only a month away from giving birth and it soured her mood. She had aches and pains, had to pee way too often, and the little one kept kicking at odd times. But looking at her belly, she couldn't help but feel love for the child. This was her child, her and Sasuke's, and she knew the child would be great. One of the reasons she chose to have his child was because a part of her was scared. Scared that when Orochimaru came for him she would lose him forever. In a way, this was her way of giving him something he wanted. His clan to live on, but also for her to keep a part of him alive in case the worst happened. In the past few years they had grown to care for the other deeply, so deeply that when he came to her with his plan to deal with Orochimaru she didn't hesitate to stand with him. It was funny, before she would have died for her leader, but now she was getting ready to betray him for the father of her child. Sasuke placed his hand on her stomach and a small smile grew on his face. Ever since he learned he would have a child, a part of him was looking forward to it. He would start his clan with his child and raise a mighty ninja. He felt a kick and grinned. Yes, the child would be great, he could feel it. Soon our child will be born. And I can't fucking wait for it, Tayuya said to him. You'd think with all the experiments Orochimaru has done on people there would be a way to make the father carry the child for a bit. She was silent a moment before voicing her worry. It's almost time for him to come for you. I know, and I'm ready for him. Sasuke looked up at her, cupping her cheek. Are you with me? Fucking right I am, she told him, her eyes steeled. Although I have to say, When you finish him, you sure you want to keep to the plan? We could always just run. A lot of people won't be happy with us, Kabuto especially. He'll live with it or else, Sasuke told her. I plan on taking sound for my own. Our child will need an army and a country, so why not Orochimaru's? Everyone knows I'm his apprentice and I also have selected those that will stand with me. She grinned at him. Well, if you are going to do this, at least can we make a base above ground for once? These tunnels suck and I'm sick of always being in the dark. Sasuke gave a small grunt of a laugh. I don't see why not. He looked at the stomach again and grinned. The future looked a lot more interesting than it did a few years ago. That's it for this part. If you enjoyed it, then like, share and subscribe for the next video as it's going to be more interesting, and also check out my other playlists. Hope you would like them too.